I want to start this off by saying that this story isn't to be taken lightly. I don't want you to read this and try to copy what is done. Instead, take it as a warning to never play this game. A warning I wished I had gotten before I made that mistake. I lived almost my entire life in the middle of Delaware. If you forgot that was a state, I wouldn't blame you. In my neighborhood, there were 3 kids I always played with every day: Kyle, Jimmy, and Seth. Our houses were close enough to each other that we played together whenever we had a chance. We did all the typical things a couple 13-year-old boys would do: swimming in the local pool, going to the Walmart and buying nothing, or just hanging in one of our basements and being jackasses. It was almost a Disney-like childhood. Sleepovers were nothing new for us. I think we had one almost every weekend. What was new was not having any parents there to watch us. Seth offered to host the next one and included that his parents were going to be gone for the night. They were staying down at the beach and told Seth it would be fine for him to invite us over. Fine for him, not so much for the rest of us. I think me and the other guys pleaded and begged our parents multiple times to let us go. Our parents knew each other and trusted us, but the idea of 4 prepubescent boys being alone in a house was any parent's worst nightmare. Somehow, by the grace of God, they agreed the night before. After all this time, I still wish they had denied us. Maybe things would have ended differently. I want to tell you about the events that happened that night that changed me into who I am. It changed my life and every family's that was involved in it. This is the night I played hide and seek with my friends. Hide and seek? Won't that get boring with just 4 of us? I asked suspiciously, as I took a handful of Doritos from the bowl on the table. It was about 10:30 p.m. when Kyle suggested we play a game so we could try and stay up later. Yeah, man, and besides, we have an Xbox, Jimmy pointed out. Seth came walking down to the basement with some sodas in hand, almost dropping the cans. What are you guys talking about? You better not be thinking of touching my controller with your greasy hands, Jimmy. Not after last time. It was an accident. I got you a new one, Jimmy responded, before chuckling a bit. No, guys, I saw this on the internet a few nights ago. We have to try it, Kyle said. He almost sounded like he was pleading with us. Kyle was always the kind of kid to believe in spooky things. Ghosts, werewolves, demons. You name it, Kyle probably believed it. I remember one time he somehow got us all to go in the woods with him during the winter to look for dog people that a YouTuber said was out near us. We all got the flu after that. Oh God, another one of these? Is it gonna be like that dog thing again? Seth chimed in. It's not like that. This one's real. I promise, dude. Kyle seemed genuine about it. I almost felt bad as the other guys called him stupid for it. Alright, man. We try your game for a bit. Then if it's a bust, we play Xbox, I suggested. Kyle's face lit up as he got some paper out of his bag. Who said you were in charge of deciding when to play my Xbox? Seth questioned. I just shushed him as Kyle got some more stuff out of his bag. Candles, lighters, a knife. I would have hated to see what would happen if we said no to his idea. Alright, first, we gotta turn all the lights off. Not a single one can be on during the game. We looked at each other before we went off to get the house started. I had been in Seth's house almost as much as mine, but there's strangeness to it when the lights were all off. We got back to the basement where we found Kyle lighting the candles and placing them on the ground around the paper. As we sat around him, I could see some words on the paper. Ready or not, here it comes. What's that for? I pointed as Kyle placed the last candle down. That's to start the game. I saw these Indian guys play it, and they said you have to start the game just like this, or it doesn't work. Kyle answered as he slowly pulled the knife up and turned to face us. Now, we have to cut ourselves. Like Sarah from Homeroom? Jimmy chuckled. I thought that was a rumor, Seth remarked as he leaned towards Jimmy. Guys, focus. Just a small prick on your finger, then you put it on the paper, Kyle demanded as he slowly pressed the knife tip into his finger. This feels very extreme. Is this safe to play? I asked, seeing Kyle wince as blood slowly pooled at the top of his finger. I think so. The guys seemed like they were having fun when they did it. He held the knife towards me next. The guys watched as I reluctantly took the knife and plucked my finger. I did encourage us to play this for Kyle's sake. I couldn't chicken out now. The other two did the same. Jimmy had more tears than the rest of us, but when he finished, he handed the knife back to Kyle. Now? Seth asked, rubbing his finger on his Pokemon pajama bottoms. Now, repeat after me. We all listened to Kyle and repeated. 1, 2, 3. Ready or not, come find me. Silence filled the basement as our eyes kept darting to see if anything happened. Did you hear that? Seth whispered. We listened as the most quiet fart escaped him. He fell on his back and laughed. Jimmy joined him and so did I. We laughed and laughed. I looked to see if Kyle found it as amusing, but was met with sadness. He looked almost heartbroken. I knew he lived for these kind of things, and for it to not work must have broken him. I moved to him and smiled. Hey, at least we didn't have to sit out in negative degrees to get results this time, huh? He smiled slightly back. Yeah, I guess you're right. I don't know how those guys made it look so convincing. CGI, probably. My dad says that's how most things are done like that, Seth said as he got up to go turn the lights back on. Before he hit the switch, a loud thud filled the room. I'll never forget the look on his face as he rushed back to the floor where we were all sitting. What was that? Jimmy whispered to me. I didn't know what to say until Kyle reluctantly chimed in. It's him. The Seeker. We sat still as another thud could be heard, like it was right above us. What the fuck, dude? Seth? Did you invite someone else over? Duncan? Or Josh, maybe? Jimmy was frantic with his questions as his eyes filled with tears. No, it's him, Kyle answered before Seth could respond. Who? I asked. The Seeker. The person who plays the game with us. Well, tell him we don't want to play anymore, Seth demanded, making sure to keep his voice down. We can't. They said he plays until everyone is found. What do you mean, until we're found? I asked. I kept looking at the stairs. My brain was trying to wrap around what was happening while also trying to keep reason in it. It's like hide and seek. We play until we're all found, or he can't find us, Kyle answered. Okay, let's go get found so the game can be over. Seth tried to stand before Kyle pulled him down. No, we don't want to be found. Bad things happen if we're found. Kyle looked at the carpet as he said it. The thud got louder, almost like it was searching the house. Okay. Then we should just stay down here, right? If we hide down here, it won't find us. How long do we have to hide, man? I stuttered, as I waited for Kyle to answer. I don't know. We sat there in silence. Thuds and crashes from upstairs made the silence somehow louder. I'd wished it was all a prank. Seth and Jimmy loved pulling those, and Kyle was usually the target for them. But I knew it wasn't that. I knew this was real. I don't know how it was, but at that moment there was something upstairs, tearing the house apart trying to find us. We stayed like that until Seth finally spoke. Let's run. What? Kyle mumbled out, his face covered by his hands. Tears were rolling down his cheeks. Let's run. The door's not far from the basement entrance. We unlock it and run to a neighbor's. Seth looked for nods or any sign of agreement. Jimmy nodded and I slowly shook yes. I looked at Kyle, grabbing his leg and squeezing it. Come on, man. We're definitely faster than it. We'll be out of here before it even sees us. I smiled at him. He looked up and slowly smiled, nodding. We all slowly moved to the base of the basement stairs. Looking down into a dark basement is scary, but looking up into a dark house is another whole kind of fear. I don't know how long we took going up those steps, but it felt like ages. We were slowly ascending into what could be our end. Seth held the doorknob and just stared at it. I knew he didn't want to be the one to open it, to potentially be the one to see whatever it was that was on the other side. I scooted around Jimmy and slowly turned the knob. The door silently opened. The house was almost pitch dark. The only light we had was from the moon herself, shining into the windows and illuminating the destroyed house. He quietly but quickly moved towards the front door. I peered into the living room to see the chairs and couches turned upside down, some side table doors ripped off their hinges. Hurry up, man, Jimmy urged Seth on as he fumbled slightly with the deadbolt. I looked to see Kyle slightly behind, close to the basement door. I moved over to get him ready to run. Let's go, Kyle. We gotta get... I almost finished my words as I watched his face turn from scared to horrified. I turned slightly to see Jimmy on the floor, crawling away from the door. I'm not even sure, even after all this time, how to describe what we saw that night. I had wished it was just a man, some man that was in the house with us, but it sadly wasn't. The best I can try and give for a description is to think of a Picasso painting. It had a crookedness to it. Its arms jagged and legs crumbled as it towered over Seth. Seth didn't move. He didn't try and fight. All he could do was stand there and look up to see its eyes peering down at him. It picked up Seth and, like a rag doll, threw him into the living room. A mean and disgusting noise came from his body as he hit the wall of the fireplace. I quickly got Jimmy to his feet and Kyle to snap out of his gaze. Me and Kyle ran to the bathroom as Jimmy made his way to the kitchen. I locked the door as I tried to catch my own heart from jumping out of my chest. Jimmy, where? My question was shortly answered as I heard Jimmy whimpering and crying outside the room. I unlocked the door and peeked out the crack. I watched it linger its way towards him, and all I could hear was wet sounds. I quickly shut the door and relocked it. My mind didn't really process what had just happened in what couldn't have been more than 3 minutes. My 2 friends I had been with almost my entire life were gone. Just like that. I sat on the cold tile floor as I listened to the thudding from outside. My breathing was dull as I looked to see Kyle shaking by the toilet. I slowly moved myself over and gave him a hug. I knew what he was thinking. I knew the horrible things he was saying to himself in his mind. I didn't know how to tell him that what was happening wasn't his fault. I'm not sure that even now I could find the words to tell him that. We'll be fine. We just gotta stay here. It won't find us. I tried to reassure him. No, it will find us. We can't stay here. Kyle, Seth and Jimmy are dead. We can't go back out there and run. I don't know why we thought it would work. No, I need to get to the basement, Kyle said. He looked up at me. Why? It's a dead end there. Maybe I can try and end the game. Rip the paper up. Something, I don't know. On one hand, It was the only idea we had besides hiding and waiting to be found. On the other, I couldn't bring myself to put that hope in his mind, to encourage him just to watch as it fails. He knew this as he came to his own conclusion. I'll go down there, and you head for the coat closet. If it doesn't work, I'll run back up and I'll head there to hide with you, okay? He nodded to himself. I just stared at him as I nodded back slightly. We stood up and slowly unlocked the door. It wasn't anywhere we could see, which made it all more frightening. We slowly made our way to the basement door. "Good luck," I whispered to him. He smiled and went our separate ways in the house. I quickly got in the coat closet that was almost directly in front of the basement door, and Kyle made his way downstairs. That was the last I saw of Kyle. It wasn't long after I heard loud thudding outside the closet door that quickly went down the stairs. All I could do was sit there and listen as I heard the silent screams and the pounding of flesh over and over and over again. Soon the hits became more wet and the screams became more silent. I sat in the closet and accepted my fate. I slightly covered myself with a fallen coat as I heard the thudding move around the house. It was only a matter of time before it got me, before it ripped the door open and I would be met with its horrifying figure. I looked out the slits of the closet door and saw the moonlight shining through the windows. I'm not sure when I fell asleep, or even how I did. My body must have been so exhausted that it decided sleep was more important than survival. My eyes slowly opened to see daylight peering through the house. The night was gone, and the day had come to save me. Although I was relieved, I still forced my eyes shut. The small amount of what I saw was enough to make me do it. I saw the closet door was open. I didn't want to have them open as it might slowly peer from the corner and look at me. I didn't want my last image to be that. I just kept them closed and covered my ears. And then I felt it. Thuds. I could feel the thudding getting closer, closer, and closer. 2 hands grabbed me. This was it. My fight or flight kicked in, and I started to fight, kicking, hitting, screaming, anything I could think of I was doing. "Calm down, son, calm down. You're safe." Those words hit me like a wall. A calmness I hadn't felt since the day before came over me. My eyes slowly opened to see the face of a young man kneeling in front of me, his hands holding my arms. He was a police officer. "It's gonna be all right," he assured me again as he slowly brought me to my feet. He walked me out of the closet and faintly said, "Keep your eyes down, kid. I'll lead you out." I think he said it more for himself, 'cause I knew he didn't want me to see. Seth was laying in the living room, his body bruised from the impact with the wall and his bones broken. Jimmy was on the kitchen counter. Multiple wounds and slashes were found on him. Kyle, I'm not sure what really happened to him. The reports on his body never came out. I just know I'll never forget those sounds from when I hid in the closet. Seth's parents moved away almost immediately after the incident. Just left. Didn't take a single thing from that house. It was later taken down. I guess no one wanted to live in a house where something like that could happen. I saw Jimmy and Kyle's parents every once in a while when I walked around the neighborhood. They would give me small smiles and waves, and I would return them back. No more, no less. After high school, I moved away for college. My parents knew why and never argued that I should stay closer. That was a little more than 15 years ago. A few weeks back, my dad called to tell me Mom had passed away. He offered if I wanted to stay at home for the funeral, stay in my old room. I hesitated. I thought of that night every day for the past 15 years, never really bringing myself to want to be back in that neighborhood. I refused and opted for a hotel a few miles away in town. And that's where I am now, in my bed, writing my tale. I want you to take it as a warning, because as I write this, I know I'm not alone. It's here. It's in the closet of the hotel room. I can just make out its outline. Its crooked legs crouching to fit inside. Its arms slightly poking out from some clothes, and its eyes staring at me. It knows I see it, and it knows I'm writing about that night. I'm not sure why now it decided to finish the game from all those years ago, but here we are. Once I finish and close my laptop, it will kill me. My father will have to bury his son just moments after burying my mother. I say this again. This tale is a warning. If I could, I would go back and tell myself to never play that game. I would tell my parents to never let us have that sleepover. I would do everything in my power to stop that night from happening, to be able to save my friends. So please, I beg and plead to you, don't play this game. 'Cause if you do, whether you're ready or not, he's coming to find you.